So let's talk about our much loved, but as I say, ailing NHS. Almost 85% of NHS trust leaders say that they are more concerned about this winter than any previous one during their career. This comes as Health Secretary Steve Barclay is set to meet the major NHS unions to strike a deal to put an end to the ballot over industrial action. So will the NHS survive this winter? Julia Taylor is a psychiatric nurse, and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire also joins us now. Now, this is a conversation, ladies, that we seem to have every single year. Will the NHS survive the winter? There is no doubt, Julia, that it is in a perilous condition at the moment.
Well, I would say yes, it is, given that we've got 7.1 million people waiting for elective surgery. And when us nurses go on strike, that's going to go up more. It's going to go up even more. I can't go on strike. A few of my colleagues can't. I just can't do it. But I can see why a lot of nurses are. We've had a 20% pay cut in the since the Tory government got in. And that says a lot, doesn't it?
You mean the pay cut in relation to inflation? So in real terms, you've had a 20% pay cut. Are you typical, Julia, to feeling quite torn by this decision at the moment? Or do you find that a lot of the nurses that you're working with are absolutely, resolute that this is what they need to do?
Some of them are, and some of them aren't, because if I go on strike, that's 4 patients I won't see in one day. Those patients are going to get moved in a list somewhere to be seen later on. I need to see those patients. I'm already working on a little bit of a backlog and I need to get that cleared. I'm already working flat out. My colleagues are working flat out. As for working harder, I actually don't know how we're going to do that because we already are doing bank shifts and overtime. But we're working alongside agency staff who are getting paid 3 times more than us. And they're coming in because we can't recruit nurses because we don't get enough pay to recruit nurses. Now they're leaving the nurses training with, £60,000 worth of debt. Yeah. If I'd been young now, I don't know if I would have done my nurses training. And I love my job.
Yeah, I'm sure. Scarlet Maguire, let me bring you in. Scarlett, you've spoken on this channel before. You're a former Labour advisor. You're also having a cancer treatment at the moment, so you know how hard these medics work and these nurses work. Do you sympathise with their position, Scarlett, or do you feel that they just need to put in some longer hours to eat away at this backlog?
No, I think that Julia, although she doesn't want to go on strike and probably won't, has made the case for the strike amazingly well. I mean, first of all, there we were clapping carers, and when it comes to it, we're not going to give them any extra money. I mean, there are masses and masses of nurses who can barely make a living, and they certainly work hard. I mean, I think there's no question about it. And they are dealing with backlogs in every single part of the health service. They're dealing with backlogs. But then, as Julia said, there is a real problem with the number of nurses leaving the profession, partly just because they cannot live on the wages. And I think that we have to take it seriously. I'm really hoping that we don't get to have a strike. I think a strike is a sign of failure. I'm sure that most nurses who, even if they voted for the strike, they don't want to go on strike. They just want decent pay. And I think we've got to turn around and say, yes, if we want to keep the health service going, we want to retain the nurses that we've got, who are already trained. We don't want to keep on trying to pull in agency nurses. And then we'll get NHS nurses going to agencies because they're going to earn more money. This is crazy. This is not a way to run the health service.
It is crazy, actually. Can you just explain to me, Julia? Because with people watching going, we don't really understand how this system works. What do you mean you can pull in agency nurses, but we don't have enough on the NHS? Just explain to us how that system operates.
What happens is, if you're on a shift and you need 5 nurses on that shift, if only 3 are available for that shift, you've got to then go to an agency that will provide nurses who've normally been trained in the NHS and they've thought, right, to hell with this, I'm off. I'm going to go and earn more money. I'm going to join the agency and do the job that I was doing anyway and getting paid 3 times more. That's what some nurses are doing. But a lot of nurses just literally go to the agency. They get, even private care, they get £9,000 more in their first year of being a nurse. Then it goes up to £13,000 in their second year. Yeah. What on earth? Why would we realistically stay in the NHS for the pay that we get when we can go private and get more money? But at the same time, that means that the NHS is paying more money. So why don't they just pay us in the first place and stop all this nonsense?
It's madness. It's madness. Maybe the solution, Julia, is just to privatise the whole NHS. We have more agencies involved. We have more profit involved. Is that the solution?
No, please God, no. Look at social care. That was privatised from the 1990s onwards. That's broken beyond repair now, I think. Now, at the minute, we've got ambulances stuck outside hospitals. We haven't got enough nurses on the wards. If we're lucky enough to get agency to cover the shifts, people are coming in and we're working flat out. And it's all because I think we're not attracting people to the job. That's what the problem is. Yeah. Why would somebody want to start their career with £60,000 worth of debt, then a mortgage on top of that? What's going on? It's all broken.
Let me just ask you, Julia, because you're a psychiatric nurse, and we're going to be talking about social care in just a while. But when I hear about problems within the NHS, it feels like there are problems in so many different areas that should have more specialist organisations. So, for instance, do you think in terms of the psychiatric area within our healthcare system, does that need reforming in order to some extent separate it from people like Scarlett, who are receiving cancer care, for instance, and the elderly care? Is there a problem in terms of trying to one-size-fits-all banner for all sorts of conditions?
I wouldn't say so. I've never personally seen any problems like that in my career. You go and you do your nurses training and you do so many months where you do basic nursing skills, then you specialise. We already are specialised, but we all work within the same system. The problem is the waste of all the money. The waste money on stupid things. I'll give you a good for instance. A few weeks ago I was on a ward and a man came to put a little bit of vinyl on a window to separate it so nobody could see. That was £90. £90. Could have gone to somewhere else and bought a bit of vinyl for about £5. And why couldn't we just have sorted that?
It definitely feels like, Scarlett, that sometimes the people who are just ordering these services for hospitals and the trusts and maybe the individuals think that they have a bottomless pit, and maybe there should be more accountability for the amounts that these departments are spending on silly things like vinyl on windows.
Well, actually, if you talk to any NHS manager, half their time is spent trying to keep in budget. So I'm sure that Julia's completely right. And there are crazy, crazy things done with some of the money. But actually, most of it, the managers are trying, they know it's not a bottomless pit. I mean, that's why we've got all these leaders of trusts saying we don't know how we're going to get through this winter, because they don't have enough staff. And they have more and more people coming in. So actually, the problem isn't accountability. I mean, the problem is that when something's on its knees, as the NHS is, then actually all the management are desperately trying to sort of say, well, we're doing okay and we're doing this right. And what we need, I mean, what actually the NHS needs is a lot of recruitment. And Julia's absolutely right. I mean, it is absolutely wrong that nurses have to pay a bursary instead of us. Actually, we should be paying to train nurses, right? And they should not be coming out with debts when we know they're not going to earn very much money at any time. I mean, that's how we need. So we need a serious injection of funds, but actually a serious injection of people. And we don't need to be messing around with making nurses even more unhappy so that they're going to leave. And that is the biggest problem, is people, really good, qualified people leaving the NHS.
Julia, how frustrating is it when you see politicians spending money in ways that make no sense to nurses? And what I'm talking about is, we had the COP27 recently, and we're devoting billions to look after a railway line in India, and we're devoting billions to eco projects overseas. How does that feel for nurses?
Well, for me personally, when I heard that the other day, I was on the ceiling. Because how can they find 11 point something billion to pay for reparations, for climate change? I don't believe in that this climate change caused by humans. So I actually think what a waste of money that is. And there's so much waste. I mean, I could give you so many examples of the waste. Look at the test and trace, 37 billion. Look at the IT system. Where I work, it's actually quite good, but you can't get that everywhere. And the IT's rubbish. We're supposed to be all on one system. They wasted billions on that. Why don't they just pay nurses to do their job well, like we do? Pay them well, get more people in. That would stop loads of the problems in the NHS.
Yeah. OK, ladies, well, we need to move on. Scarlett, lovely to see you. Scarlett Maguire, former Labour advisor, and Julia Taylor there, a psychiatric nurse. Well, it's not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon, is it? We've got a Twitter poll running on this, so please get involved. Let us know what you think. What is the solution to this? Should the nurses and the other hospital workers be striking, or should they be just working longer hours? What do you think?